my little goblins. My name is Jay. Welcome back to my channel, and this is Fright Night Beast, where horror and Halloween and food is a lifestyle. Guys, first of all, I'm frickin' starving. I'm so hungry. Look at the spread that I have today. What I've got here is a bunch of MAPO tofu. Now, I didn't make it from scratch, okay? Because your girl isn't that fancy with the Chinese cooking. But I got it in a package, in a tofu package at H Mart. It already had the sauce in it. It had textured vegetable protein, TVP, as the vegans know it. So it has like this sort of like beefy, chewy texture in the sauce. And then I've got like a line of kimchi dumplings in there that I'm super pumped to sink my teeth into. And I've got also three packets of INDOMIE GORENG hot and spicy noodles. I'm really pumped about this because it's been a while, guys. It's been a freaking while since I filmed a mukbang, it feels like. I feel like I've been busy exploring other content for my channel and just trying to keep things fresh for you guys and interesting. And, you know, also just trying to stay true to things that really interest me and excite me. But one thing that has not changed is my love for food and mukbangs and horror movies. And I have got a movie for you today, guys. Fresh from the theaters, it is It Chapter 2. Now, guys, if you haven't seen It Chapter 2 yet, I would implore you to maybe pause this video and come back to it after you've seen it, unless you don't care about spoilers. And in that case, let's get with it. Also, forgive me if I'm looking a little dewy, a little moist, because it's hot as balls here in North Carolina. It's September, it's almost the middle of September, and it's still just blazing hot. I don't even know what to do with it. Like, I feel like I'm just sweating my skin off. So there's that. With that in mind, let's get our daily dose of ASMR. My basic Biss LaCroix. Oh my god, one of my lights just fell, so sorry for that weird schizophrenic freak out. So much for a relaxing ASMR hit, but it's okay. I need this drink because it's really freaking hot in this room. And of course, I picked borderline like spicy food. I don't really think INDOMIE GORENG is all that spicy, and this MAPO tofu isn't that crazy, but it's hot in this room and it's about to build up on spice, so whatever. Guys, let's take a frickin' bite. All right, first, I have got to try this MAPO tofu. It is calling my name. I have it on a giant bed of rice because I don't know, how else do you eat MAPO tofu? I don't know, maybe you guys eat it differently, but look at this, look at this bite. Oh my god. Super freaking good, guys. Oh, the rice is perfect. Guys, how do you like my new setup? I've got all the things happening here. I've got my bookshelf here. It's actually bigger. It's further down. And then I've got my other bookshelf here with my horror stuff. And I've got some pictures hanging, but you probably can't see. And then I've got my Harry Potter tapestry and my little broom here. It's so cozy in this room. It feels like a room now. I'm really excited about it. Okay, let me get some of this INDOMIE GORENG. Oh, it's sticking together. Guys, it's been a while since I've had Indomie goreng. It's freaking delicious. Oh my god. That was delicious. Where is my napkin? Here we go. Wow. I might finish through that. I don't know if I'll eat all of this, but I'm really freaking hungry and this is delicious. It's been a while since I've had any of these flavors. So, your girl's been missing it. Why did I just say that? Super weird. Your girl has been missing it. Oh gosh, guys, I'm getting sweaty in here. It's so warm. But, so let's jump into the movie, okay? I'm not going to give like a super detailed synopsis because that's going to take too long. It's going to end up having to incorporate bits of the first movie. And this movie, It Chapter 2, was well over 2.5 hours. It was pretty close to 3 hours, so it got long. But honestly, I was so enraptured by the movie that I really didn't notice the time. My boyfriend took me to go see it. He actually surprised me with tickets. I feel super spoiled because he bought the tickets without even telling me, and then he was like, we're going at 5. And if you guys know, if you've been with me for a while, you know that my boyfriend doesn't like horror movies, but he took me to see this because he knew I was excited, and I hadn't even brought it up because I was like, nah, maybe I'll go see it with some friends. But opening weekend, guys, I feel so spoiled. So he took me to see that, and he said that he noticed the length of the movie, but because he had to pee, so I guess that'll like put a damper on, you know, the experience sometimes when you just all you can focus on is having to pee. But I really didn't notice the length of time. It was amazing from beginning to end, and I don't say that about a lot of movies, I think. Excuse me. I'm pretty easily pleased, but this movie truly had so many things in it that we're going to get into that I thought it was absolutely perfect, and I'm really excited to share it with you. All right, I want some of this dumpling, and I've got some soy sauce and vinegar here. My parents used to eat things with soy sauce and vinegar and then like little shavings of garlic. If you've never tried soy sauce and vinegar, it's so good. I should have made more dumplings too. Oh my god, that's really good. So It Chapter 2 is exactly as the title states. It basically follows when the children have already grown up. It's 27 years later after the first movie takes place, and they've all started, or they're all in the middle of leading their own lives. Some of them are married. A lot of them, not a lot, all of them have their own jobs, their own lives. They're far away from Derry. Derry, Maine is where it originally took place. And they get a call from Mike, who was one of the kids in the group. They made a promise in the first movie that if things started happening again, if it comes back, they would come back to deal with it and like deal with it once and for all. And so sure enough, 27 years later, things start happening. And Mike, the one of the kids that never left Derry, calls everyone back to deal with it. And shit goes down, guys. Shit goes down. So good. All right. Guys, I love rice and tofu. It's so simple, but it's so good. Oh my god. I bought this packet of tofu before, but I was the only one who ate it. And I thought it'd be perfect for a mukbang because I could eat a lot of it. My boyfriend doesn't like this texture of tofu when it's not like fried and chewy. This is more soft. So, one of the best parts of this movie is that, you know, they're all adults now and they're having flashbacks to when they were kids. But what I found really striking is that a lot of the actors, and there were good actors in here, Jessica Chastain, James McAvoy, Bill Hader, and a few others that I didn't know beforehand, but they were phenomenal. And they must have worked very closely with the children who played in the first movie, because they did really good in just sort of continuing the personalities from when they were children and then sort of just refined it into that adult version of themselves. Like Bill Hader played Richie, and he was like the smartass boy of the group, and he was always funny. He was always making jokes. And in It Chapter 2, he grew up to be a comedian. So he's of course still doing that whole smartass jokey like bit in his life, but now he's a professional. So he's quicker and he's more funny, and of course it's played by Bill Hader. How can you not like Bill Hader? And of course I knew he was going to do genius. He was going to do a genius job because I've been watching that show of his that he directs, and I think he writes too, called Barry. And it is phenomenal. So I knew when I saw that Bill Hader was going to be in It Chapter 2, he was going to do a good freaking job. And he does. He does. He plays adult Richie in the most flawless of ways, where he's obviously like very smart alecky and jokey and always sarcastic, but it's also like a big defense mechanism for Richie. When he gets stripped down and things start getting serious and really scary with Pennywise the Clown, he's sort of stripped down to the most vulnerable version of Richie, and you can really see that come out, and it is really interesting to see. So good. And a lot of the characters were like that. Beverly, as a child, in the first It movie, was very obviously abused by her father. Like, he is, whether it was emotional, physical, sexual, it's sort of, you know, not terribly explicit, but then also is. And as an adult, you see her get the call from Mike and telling her that she needs to come back, and her husband is also abusive. So it's sort of like that daddy problem thing. I mean, that's a real thing. I'm not making light of that, but I think that sort of carried on to her future relationships, and she ends up marrying this really abusive man, sexually and physically abusive. And she just... Oh my God. I dropped a spoon. Sorry. And she ends up leaving the guy to go back to Derry and figure out what the heck's going on with the clown, with Pennywise the Clown. And you can hear him in the background say, "You're nothing without me, you're worthless." And it was basically the same thing that her father would say to her. And so, you know, she, in the first movie when she was younger, she played this very like tough, sort of can hang with the boys kind of character, but really she had a lot to go home to and deal with. And it was the same way in It Chapter 2. Like, she sort of skirts around the subject of her marriage when she reunites with the rest of the group, and just goes back to being sort of the fun, tough, like can hang with the boys Beverly. And you sort of can see yourself as the viewer reflected in these characters' eyes. And it's just really interesting. It's really good filmmaking, I thought. Oh gosh, I am hungry today, guys. Ooh. If you like that, I use chopsticks and my spoon. I know. I'm a master. Oh my gosh. Whoop. Now, I loved every single one of these characters. They all had their part to play in the story, and they all really just brought an intense and amazing dynamic to the group. And one of my favorites was Eddie. And, you know, if you've seen the original It, or just like the first movie of this It and It Chapter 2, Eddie is a character that is like always acting like he's sick. He's very neurotic. He's very like risk averse. And then in It Chapter 2, he grows up to be a risk analyst in the city. I don't know what city it is. It looks kind of like New York. And he actually ends up marrying, and I quote from the movie, a woman 10 times his body composition. Because I think also his mother... No, I know his mother was much larger, or was a large woman when he was growing up. So you can sort of see like these like themes of their childhood sort of carry on to their adulthood, which, you know, is a very small thing to think about when it comes in terms of scope of continuation in a film. But it was really interesting to be such a big fan of the original It movie, and then being a big fan of the recent It Part 1, and then seeing it continue seamlessly in It Chapter 2. And Eddie continues to be sort of like this pragmatic, risk-averse, like, let's get the F out of here. This is ridiculous. Why are we even putting ourselves in this situation kind of person? And there was a couple moments with Eddie that I really freaking loved. And one of them, well, let me tell you after I take a bite, because, God, guys, I gotta eat this food. Soy sauce and vinegar, guys. That's where it's at. I hate to eat this because it's the last dumpling, but it's so good with the soy sauce and vinegar. So, one of the parts that I really loved with Eddie was, it was sort of towards the latter half of the movie. Henry Bowers, I think his name is Henry Bowers. He was the bully in the first movie, and in this movie, of course, he is in the insane asylum, or whatever it's called. And he escapes, and he's doing Pennywise's bidding. At this point, it's very obvious that he is on the side of Pennywise and is trying to help him accomplish his goal. And Henry ends up attacking Eddie. And the way he attacks Eddie is he takes his knife and he like stabs Eddie in the cheek. First of all, when I saw that, I was like, what the hell? Who stabs anyone in the cheek? This crazy ass mofo. So Eddie, being, you know, the very neurotic, risk-averse person that he is, was like, "Whoa." He just like couldn't even like fully freak out because he was just so amazed that this was happening to him. And so he was like skirting across against the wall, just like trying to inch away from Henry while this like knife is sticking out of his face. And then he ends up like he's like so scared. He climbs into this bathtub and then just like pulls the curtain shut, and and Henry comes up and he's like, you know, being the crazy person that he is, he comes up, he's like, oh, are we playing a game type of thing? And Eddie you don't see this, but he takes out the knife from his cheek and just like stabs Henry through the shower curtain. Excuse me. I'm talking so fast, I'm so sorry, but this movie, I just saw it last night and it was amazing. And so he stabs Henry through the shower curtain, and Henry's just like looking at his stab wound, just aghast, like confused that this is happening because he thought he had Eddie cornered. And Eddie steps out triumphant, bleeding from his face and still completely like, oh God, it was such a great moment. It was genuinely like horrifying and also incredibly hilarious. And then later, they're in the house. They make it back to the house from the It Part 1 movie. And they're like just starting to get into the house. And of course, Pennywise is already pulling his shit and starting to lay attacks on the group. And this like crazy spider made out of Stanley Uris's head. Stanley was one of the group, but he sadly killed himself early in It Chapter 2 in the beginning of the movie. So Pennywise makes them see like, he basically magics the head into becoming this like ridiculous, crazy, like flesh-eating spider. And while the spider ends up attacking Richie, played by Bill Hader, and Bill, who's played by James McAvoy, is trying to get the spider off of Richie. He's like screaming, and everyone's trying to pull this ridiculous spider off of Bill Hader. And Eddie is just like standing in the corner, like freaking out, not saying anything, not doing anything, not helping. And at one point, like a knife goes flying through the air and it lands close to Eddie's feet. And Bill, played by James McAvoy, is like, "Eddie, get the knife." And Eddie's like, and to be honest, I saw this part and I was like, would I be Eddie? Like, I hate to admit that I might be Eddie, but holy shit, how would you even react to this crazy, like, spider that has the head of your old best friend? And later on, after they pull the spider off Bill Hader, Ben stabs the spider through the head, and that's done and over with. Bill comes over and he like grabs Eddie by the scruff of his shirt, and he's like, "Are you trying to get us all killed? How could you do nothing?" And Eddie was like,
Bill, I'm sorry. Please don't be mad. I was just scared."
Eddie, I feel that so hard because I would be freaking terrified too. That's just how that would be. And Bill, of course, softens up and he's like, "Well, don't be afraid." That's what he feeds on. Don't give that to him. And of course, that's easier said than done, but you know, it's very obvious in that very vulnerable moment for Eddie and Bill that you can almost see them just like revert back to children. Like you can almost imagine them like being kids again in that house facing Pennywise for the first time. And it was just a moment that like profoundly touched me for some reason, because even as adults, the things that scared us as children, they never go away. Not really. Some of them just stay there and they sort of stay buried. And in that moment, it became very real to Eddie that he was still very much afraid of this clown and everything that came with it. And Bill was very much the same person. He was always charging ahead and trying to do what's the best for the group and being the leader and always trying to do what he knew best. But even then, he found it still hard to keep the group together as a unit and not fall apart due to all the fear surrounding this battle between them and Pennywise. And I just really thought it was such an incredible moment. And there were a lot of incredible moments in this movie. I mean, oh gosh, I know I'm rambling, I'm not eating. And you guys are like, why are we even watching this mukbang if you're not going to eat? Guys, I don't know. Hopefully you also come for the movie reviews. Oh my god. These noodles are so good. Oh. I feel like I'm neglecting this MAPO tofu and rice. Guys, like my shirt? It says a little veganism never hurt anybody. I think, yeah. It's got a little piggy on it. Piggy? It's a cow. It's really cute. My friend Irina from my weightlifting team gave it to me. And she's vegan too. I love her to death. Yeah, there were lots of moments in this movie that just like blew me away. I mean, the scares were really good. They were really freaking good. They were a lot of jump scares. I would say the movie was more atmospheric than actually overall creepy, but that's almost not true. The movie really focuses on the adults of the group just trying to defeat Pennywise, defeat what, you know, had been weighing them down all these years. And one of the really interesting parts of the movie was actually the beginning of the movie. So the beginning of the movie opens up to being back in Derry, Maine. And this couple, this gay couple, there's two men, they're at a fair and a group of like douchey boys just see them like exchange a kiss. And of course, you know, Derry being the small town that it is also has homophobic people in there. And so these group of guys end up assaulting the gay couple. And they really, sorry guys, my camera stopped recording. But you know, they really end up messing up one of the men in the couple. They beat him up and his face is super bloody and he is having an asthma attack in the middle of it. It's really horrible. And then they throw the gay man over the bridge because they were standing on a bridge, and he plunges into the rushing river below them. And his partner is freaking out. He's scared. He's freaking out. And he goes down. He travels down from the bridge and goes to see if he can find his partner. And then across the river, Pennywise is standing there. Pennywise the clown. And he pulls his beaten partner out of the water and takes a giant bite out of his beaten partner's side. And that's where the movie sort of starts. And I thought it was really interesting for a couple of reasons. So maybe it's because I watched it, the original movie It with Tim Curry, too early in life. Like, I didn't quite understand all the nuances that it was getting at. And I also haven't read the book. So there's that. But I hadn't realized, or maybe it wasn't terribly apparent to me when I was younger, that the whole premise of it is based on the idea that the Pennywise the clown resembles fear as an entity. And the more fear there is, the more he grows, the more he feeds on it, the bigger he comes. And Pennywise in It Chapter 2 says he is the eater of worlds, which, you know, if you imagined fear itself as an entity, you could imagine that it would be an eater of worlds. I mean, oh, there's a fly. And I just really thought that was super interesting because it was so much more apparent this time around. I feel like because they split what Stephen King's book It, I think, is like something like 1,000 pages. It is a behemoth. So splitting the movie into two and making it decently long movies, I really feel like gave it the depth and reach to explore that theme of Pennywise and it being fear as an entity. And like I said, I must have not really understood it when I was younger, and as I grew older, I've obviously seen the movie a million times. It's one of my favorite horror movies, to be honest. But when It Chapter 2 started with that gay couple being assaulted in Derry, Maine, it seemed so obvious then and there. Because a lot of homophobia, or just like, treatment of quote unquote the other, or people that aren't like you, is always very much stemmed in fear. There's a lot of hatred there, but a lot of hatred is also going back to the foundation of fear. And not to get too lofty and philosophical, but when the movie started with that, I was like, man, we are going to be in for a ride. This is going to be an amazing movie. I can just feel it in my bones. And my bones were right. It was an amazing movie. And there was just so many parts of the movie that I really loved. And I could talk about it all day. And you guys are like, we know, you've been already talking about it all day. Guys, I'm sorry. It was so perfect. Okay, so another thing that I really loved about this movie is that it had a lot of comic relief points in the movie. Like Richie, played by Bill Hader, and even Eddie. Eddie was so funny. And I really think that comedy in a horror movie, while it's not necessarily crucial all the time, it is nice to include because horror can be so tense, so wrought with scariness and terror that, I don't think scariness is a word, that having a bit of comic relief really helps and sort of gives your mind a break, and then you can go back and be ready, like mentally prepared for the next scare, and it makes it that much better. At least that's what I think. And there wasn't so many bits of comedy in this movie, and it was just fantastic. And I think one aspect of the comedic relief in the movie was that though the movie was scary, there were jump scares. Like I genuinely screamed in the theater while watching this. The different transformations of it and the little monsters and crazy images that happened. I did this. I don't know why I did this. There were a lot of hands in it. I don't know. There were lots of just hands. If you go see it, or if you've seen it, you'll know what I'm talking about. Just the different transformations and the different like forms that Pennywise took. They were scary, but they were also almost a caricature of what scary should be. So it was almost comical. Like the spider I was talking to you about earlier, that was scary. It was disgusting, but then it was also kind of like comical because it was very exaggerated, and it felt like I was looking at a lot of images of nightmarish things. And I thought that was very interesting. There were a lot of aspects that really felt like you were looking into someone's nightmare. And I thought that was such a phenomenal part of the movie. And it really just like all around the imagery, the comedic relief and comedic aspects, like the dynamic between the group, the wonderful actors. Oh my God, guys, I could go on forever. So, all in all, I hate to ever say that a remake is better than the original. And I'm not going to say that here because the original It was truly so terrifying. Tim Curry did an amazing job as Pennywise. But I will say that Pennywise was a much more of a 3D character in these recent It movies. And so were the children and the adults of the group. And there was enough time, because it was split into 2 movies, that it was truly a deep dive into Stephen King's book. I need to read the book so I can say that accurately and not be like talking out of my ass, but I have a feeling, excuse me, oh my God, spicy. I have a feeling that when I do go read the book, I will find that there is value in both versions, the original and then the 2-part series of movies recently. I think there's value in both versions. And I think that I almost think you couldn't have one without the other. Like, Tim Curry was the original. Those kids were truly like scared. And the movie itself was just so quintessential to my horror childhood that I could never say that the recent movies were better, but the recent movies were their own thing. They were their own thing. They were phenomenal. They were so just in depth, and I couldn't say more wonderful things about it. Did that make sense? Yeah. I just could keep going on, and I'm not going to. I'm going to end this video soon. But truly, if you get the chance to see it in theaters, it's so worth seeing in the theaters, because there's always an element that's lost in terms of scariness when it's just in your like home and you're feeling less vulnerable than you are when you're in a public space like a theater. I don't know. That's how my mind works. I felt scared in the theater, and I know that I'm going to be scared when I watch it back when it comes out on DVD in my house, but it's definitely just an incredible experience to see it in the theaters and be totally immersed and surrounded by this tale of fear and the children and the adults that battle it, and really just like the underlying trauma that people oftentimes don't escape until they face it head on, and it can carry on for years. And that was my biggest takeaway, was that, you know, if you don't address something head on, you may never be able to get over it. No matter how much you think your life has progressed, it will continue to haunt you. And that's going to get real deep and lofty and philosophical, but I understand. I've had things happen in my past where, you know, I'm just starting to deal with it. I'm just starting to look it in the face. And I guess that's why the movie really spoke to me. And I'm sure, I mean, everyone does. Everyone has something that's happened to them before or is happening to them now. And you can sort of feel it just sort of permeate underneath your skin into your entire being. And then, you know, after a while, you lose that feeling. And before you know it, it's years before you've realized that you've just gotten used to living with that trauma. And that's what these kids and these adults went through in the story of It. So it was phenomenal. I just genuinely loved it from the bottom of my heart. I don't even know who the director was, but hands down, one of the most amazing movies I've seen in a while, especially for a sequel and a remake. You guys gotta go see it. Anyway, I think I'm done. I made a decent dent. Like, yeah, heck yeah. I hope you guys loved the video. If you did, please give it a like. Comment down below if you've seen the movie or if you're going to, what your thoughts were. And please hit that notification bell so you know when I'm bringing spooky things to you. See you later, guys. Bye.